there has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Branch. Michael by there.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, 27-year veteran of the NYPD, retired out of the Manhattan North Homicide Squad. Folks, we're going to cover the missing person case of Madeline Kingsbury today. But before we get to that, and there's some somewhat new developments in that case. But before we get to that, we just want to mention to our audience that this is the 10-year anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. And the reason we say that or commemorate that is because I think it sort of outline how good law enforcement is across this great nation. And in the Boston Marathon bombing, federal agencies were involved. The Boston Police Department did an unbelievable job. And then peripheral police departments, small police departments, for example, like Watertown. Watertown saved the lives of potentially hundreds, maybe thousands of people by stopping the Tsarnaev brothers dead in Watertown. And as I say, the bravery of law enforcement, you can't underscore it. And the training, how they encountered two really mad dog killers and these terrorists, and they shot it out with them, and they got the better of them, even though one of them was trained in Chechnya, trained in a terrorist camp in Chechnya. Over 2 years ago, we had Sergeant John McClellan from the Watertown Police Department on our show. And to commemorate that, I just want to play a little bit of this. I'm not totally buffing out, but I almost was in tears when he was telling his story to us on the show. And Phil was relatively new to the show. He was on it. We had Cliff Moylan. He was the actor that played Sergeant John McClellan in the movie Patriot Days. And we also had Michelle McPhee, who is an author and journalist, who wrote a book called Mayhem on the Boston Marathon bombing. So I want to play a little bit of this. We'll bring this up right now, and you get to listen to a little bit of it. But one of the most amazing things about this is what I'm going to show. I'm going to show a little video of it right now. And it was the firefight that this hero in the bottom left got into. And I'm going to put this on the screen, and we'll watch a little bit of this. And he can, after it, he's going to tell us from his perspective, what the hell happened.
We need assistance immediately. Let's report a shots fired at officer, shots fired at Watertown Police Officer.
My pistol ran out of ammo. I had to reload. He was still shooting. I reloaded. It turned out I emptied my pistol at him.
There's explosions and gunfire going on down the street.
Agencies eyes, possible dynamite type explosives, and they're throwing it at the officers that are responding.
I thought we were going to die. I mean, I truly thought that we were going to die.
The first. We're getting an update. There may be guns in the vehicle.
You say this was the street.
Sergeant John McClellan closes in with another Watertown officer, Joey Reynolds, just ahead of him.
I come around the corner and the bad guy's out, arms fully stretched out.
Reported shots fired at officers trying to stop the vehicle.
Shooting at the windshield of Officer Reynolds' cruiser.
Shots fired at Watertown Police Officers.
The bad guy switches from Joey to me and takes one shot and puts it right through the middle of my windshield from about 120 feet away.
We need assistance immediately. Shots fired again. There's shots fired again. We have 3 units responding.
So I stood here. I said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I jumped up, threw it in drive, and I just jumped down right here, and I was following it. I was the
car's moving.
Car's moving, and I'm following it like this and just shooting right in between here, using the door as cover. So I probably took 12, 15 steps with the vehicle, and saw the tree. I shut the door. I ran to the tree, and they think someone's in it the whole time. So you could see them shooting at it. You can see them throwing the bombs at it. And I'm like, I was like, geez, this is working. I'm like, I can't believe it.
We get a report from the patrol supervisor that these suspects has unpowerful dynamite type explosives with them, and they're throwing it at the officers that are responding.
Now a third Watertown officer, Sergeant Jeff Pugliese, responds.
And I fired 3 or 4 shots. I was positive I was hitting him, but he wasn't going down.
In more than 3 decades on the force, neither man had ever fired his weapon in action until this night.
Who did you hit?
Tamerlan.
Did
Yeah.
he keep shooting?
He came charging up the street, shooting at me. So we're about 6 feet apart. We ran up that driveway.
You're shooting each other
Yes.
6, 7 feet apart?
I emptied my pistol at him. And in the meantime, his pistol ran out of ammunition. I didn't know if it jammed at the time or what. He kind of looked at his gun, looked at me, got frustrated, threw the gun, hit me in my left bicep. He turned, he ran down back onto the street, took a left. I chased after him, and I probably left about 4 or 5 feet in the air and came down on the shoulders and tackled him.
We had 8 bullets in him, and he was still fighting us. The only I had was my empty gun, and I pistol whipped him. I was trying to knock him out. I hit him as hard as I could, 10, 12 times. Couldn't knock him out.
The younger Tsarnaev, now back in the Mercedes, runs over his brother, just missing Pugliese.
And I'm laying there, and I saw the front wheels go over Tamerlan. I saw him bounce up and underneath the undercarriage a couple of times. I saw him get hung up in the rear wheels and get dragged 20, 25 feet.
All officers responding. We have one body pinned down, and we have another one on the line, shots fired.
And all we saw was taillights at that point.
Police fired as he fled. They missed him, but a ricochet wounded a transit police officer who had responded to the scene.
Once other agencies started showing up, they said to us, "Do you know who you have here?" And we said, "A couple of guys that hijacked a car."
And he goes, no. Do you know who you got? These are the Boston Marathon bombers. And I'm like, what? I'm like, how do you know that? He's like, we've been chasing them all night. These are them. These are the guys. I'm like,
So is this black hat or is this white hat? Who's the dead guy? I mean, is this bigger than
You know, John, I feel like I got to do this. Amazing, man. I feel like if there was a crowd that watched this, they should give you a standing ovation. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. John, I'm so much want to hear your perspective. When you watch this, first of all, before we get into it, how does it make you feel?
It's funny, Bill. I don't think I saw that since it aired years ago. And geez, it is kind of surreal. You know, it's funny. It's you know, it's just part of my life, and I don't look at it like that. It was just like kind of a night on the job, just like you guys. You know, just so happened who they were and how it shook out, how long the gunfight was, and how, you know.
Unbelievable, huh, Mike? I just wanted to do that as a salute to the Watertown police and to the 3 people that lost their lives at the scene of the Boston Marathon, the 1 police officer who lost his life, and the 17 people at the Boston Marathon scene that lost their limbs. And I just, when I watch this, it makes me proud to have been in law enforcement.
Yeah, I remember that whole week that they were, from the time of the marathon bombing to the time they finally caught Tsarnaev alive in that boat. You know, I was proud of the job the guys did, and I wish I had been retired, but I wish I could have just jumped in a car, got my gun belt, joined them, because I would have given anything to be a cop that week, because that is pure, you know, hunting down the bad guy, going after him, you know, no holds barred. And these guys, you knew, were just homicidal maniacs, and you know, they're a danger to everyone. It was amazing.
I love that sergeant on Watertown with 30 years on his gun ran out of ammo. He chased the guy and he took a flying leap. He had 30 years on. He had to be in his middle to late 50s.
Yeah.
Right? And he takes a dive. He thought he was on TV, and he tackled I think it was Tamerlan Tsarnaev. He was a bigger brother. And he was shot 8 times, run over by a car, and he was still alive when they brought him to the hospital. They actually operated on him in the hospital. This guy was a bad, bad guy, you know?
That just shows you what adrenaline can do for both law enforcement and the perp. When you've got that much adrenaline pumping and you're not, we had a guy one time in the 4-6 precinct, he was shooting at cops and stuff like that. And he was shot a number of times, but none of the bullets actually hit his chest. They were shot in the arm, the hand, a little bit on the leg. And if you don't get like a vital organ, that's why cops always shoot to stop center mass. And because like what happened with them, the bullets were hitting him, but nothing ever got like his heart. And so therefore he still had that fight in him. He was going to fight till he just ran out of blood. That was just an amazing story.
Unbelievable. So folks, that was our tribute to all the officers, all of law enforcement, and all of the people that died and were injured at the Boston Marathon. Today, if you haven't paid attention to news, today was the 10-year anniversary of that. And Zokar Zaneh, who was the younger brother, he's on death row right now.
Mm-hmm.
It could take 25 years to put that little slime bag to death. But tonight, guys, we're going to be covering, of course, the Madeline Kingsbury case. Some new information. We've given a lot of our opinion on this case. Our opinion hasn't changed. We believe there is a person of interest. We hate to use that term. We believe he's a suspect. So we're going to cover, I'm going to play a little bit of this video right now, pull it up on the screen, and just get the segue from what we were just covering to get back into this case right now. Let's see, what are we doing here? Okay.
Continues around Winona for missing 26-year-old mother Madeline Kingsbury. She was last seen March 31st, and tonight we're learning new details about the father of her children. Our Mary McGuire joining us now after going through some court documents and talking to Maddie's family today. Mary.
Well, Kelsey, it's been nearly 2 weeks since anyone has seen or heard from Maddie Kingsbury, and her family is still desperately trying to find this mother of two. Tonight, we are learning more from court records showing the father of those two children did not have custody of them and fought authorities who tried to remove him from his care after her disappearance.
You can flip stuff over. Do we flip stuff?
The search for Maddie continues, with authorities in both Winona and Fillmore counties conducting smaller scale searches for the missing mother this week.
We remain hopeful that we will find Madeline, hopefully soon.
The 26-year-old hasn't been seen since March 31st after dropping her two kids off at daycare with their father, Adam Fravel. Fravel told police he left her home in Maddie's minivan to run errands, and when he came back later, she was gone. Her phone, jacket, and wallet still inside. Maddie's sister Megan says she knew something was off when she never received a response from a text message that morning.
She never responded back at that time or since.
Fox 9 has obtained court documents that show in the days after Maddie went missing, those children were removed from Fravel's care, who does not have custody. Those records detail the exposure of the children to criminal activity in the children's home as one of the reasons why, and say Fravel was non-cooperative when authorities came to get the kids. Fravel is now fighting that custody order, and through his attorney spoke publicly for the first time on Wednesday, insisting he had nothing to do with Maddie's disappearance and that he has been cooperating with law enforcement at every turn. He said law enforcement advised him on April 2nd that they would not recommend he attend press conferences or assist in searches due to safety concerns. But a spokesperson with the BCA tells Fox 9 they aren't aware of any law enforcement advising him not to attend news conferences or search for Maddie. Her family isn't commenting on that statement from Fravel, but say her kids are doing well.
I'm not at liberty to say whose custody they're in right now, but they're in good hands and they're safe and they're doing really well.
A $50,000 reward is being offered for information leading to Maddie's whereabouts. Law enforcement has not named a suspect or a person of interest in this case, but do call Maddie's disappearance involuntary and suspicious. Kelsey.
So, Mike, we spoke about this case, of course, and, in these missing person cases, I don't have the exact percentage, but 90% of the time, I believe it's as high as that it's someone that the missing person knows. And in this case, it's they haven't named him as a person of interest, which I hate that term.
Right.
They haven't named him as a suspect. But we in law enforcement know he is suspect numero uno, and they are waiting to collect the evidence that they're going to be able to, hopefully, to pull the trigger and lock this guy up, because I don't think they have their eyes on anyone else. There's certain forensic evidence that they're probably waiting on, i.e. the vehicle, doing that forensic check on that the 2014 van that they were allegedly both driving in when they dropped off the kids. We talk about a great deal of time when we talk about victimology and perpology. Victimology, of course, is Madeline is the victim in this. In my opinion, the perp, or the person of interest, so they say, is Adam Fravel. And they need to do, of course, and I'm sure they've done it, a deep dive into his background. Who is this guy? What's he been doing? Some of the things we learned about him, I think that the police and child welfare was concerned enough to take the two children out of his care, because how would that look if they left the kids with him and something horrific happened to the two children? So, but the fact that they pulled the kids back from this, that's telling. That means something. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, Billy, we know as police officers, we've done these kind of searches for little children, elderly, abused people, runaway, things like that. And in these kind of cases where there is domestic strife, just specifically talking about domestic strife, and one of the people disappears, the husband or the mother just suddenly disappears. No text messages, no credit card withdrawals, no, things like that. All just dead silence in terms of electronic, breadcrumbs of where they're traveling, going around. We know that they're not moving. And logically, you always look to see who was the last person who saw this one alive. That's why timelines say that you can place people at particular locations at particular times. And when they give you an alibi or tell you their story, you can check that out. So logically, he is absolutely, from the first moment this was reported as a missing person, and then the police went to the house and saw that her wallet and ID and everything's just sitting there, and that's rather strange. He became suspect number one. The first few hours, maybe not, but after the first few hours, absolutely. And then they're going to look to the, as you say, the victimology. Get those cell phone records. They might take like a month, so we all have to be patient. But what was the text messaging between them? Was there anything nasty? Was there anything threatening? Anything harassing?
Mike, even further back than that,
Yeah.
What was their relationship about in these past few months?
Right.
I mean,
Right.
relationships don't just go bad like a light switch.
No.
You turn it off, you turn it on. It happens over time.
Right.
So I'm sure that the family knows, and they're not offering it up to anyone. I'm sure the family knows that the relationship was turning bad for
Mhm.
months. Look, that was supposedly her last day in that house. She was moving out, moving away from him.
Right.
So was that the catalyst that
Strange coincidence.
that caused something really bad to happen? What was the percentage of time that they drove the kids together to daycare?
Mhm.
Did that ever happen? Apparently, I'm going to show a little bit of the interview with the sister. He has his own car. Why was he borrowing her van after they dropped the kids off? In my estimation, she never returned back to the house. That's my opinion.
Right.
After they dropped off the kids, if that in fact happened and they have people that saw them there, she never ever got back to the house. That is 100% my opinion. I think that's, he probably just later on dropped off her ID, her phone, her ID, and all of that stuff. And he did something in between that. That's the only people that are going to know that right now, of course, is law enforcement. They're building a case right now against this guy. And, I know no one's saying he's the guy, he's the suspect, he's the person of interest, but we know that that's the case, and look, we're not saying anything that we're not blowing their case by saying this. I'm sure many educated people know that, in fact, he is the person of interest right now.
Yeah, yeah. Apparently, she is very close to her sister. And the morning of her disappearance on the 31st, her sister said in an interview, press conference, that she'd sent like a humorous text message, and she never was never heard back from Maddie. And so, that went on all day. So it really set off the alarms. I'm sure the families of every member of that family has given law enforcement their cell phones to see all of the text messages, all of the chats that Maddie had with her family, if they were that close. And so they would know what her feelings were over the past few months regarding Frizzell. And as you said, this stuff doesn't happen overnight. It's not like a light switch coming on and off. There was a deteriorating relationship over several months. She was going to be moving out. He was looking at the end of their relationship, also the end of perhaps his being able to interact with his children. Strange coincidence that that would be the day that she would disappear. Everyone knows he is suspect number one. His attorneys, he knows, the police chief, the family knows. I'm very surprised that her family, the Kingsbury family, has been so quiet in terms of their relationship with Adam. And I'm glad they are, because everything they're saying, all the interviews they've given, are to the police. They're confidential and they're not for public discourse. And I think that's the best thing to do. And I salute that family, because that is a very strong family, and they are very, very careful of how they refer to their, to Frizzell.
Legal Minded Friends, who's a great friend of the show, she made a great comment right here. Police off the cuff, this happens here too often. When the partner says they are leaving, it's the most dangerous time. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
In domestic violence cases, when people are breaking up, it's almost like I can't tell you how many closed jobs I went on in the NYPD. And Mike can attest to that too. A closed job was simply when one of the partners, usually the woman, would say, could you escort me back into the apartment? I got to get my clothes and stuff to get out, and he's there. I can't go into the apartment alone while he's there. So we would do what was called closed jobs. And again, when they broke up, that's why it's so difficult in domestic violence incidents is for women, because they really need a place to stay. And New York City, in their domestic violence program, have covered that by having a place that they can stay for free, and no one knows where they're staying, especially, of course, the offender in the case. So we understand all of these things. And Legal Minded Friend, thank you for that comment.
No, that's
it's so
absolutely
true. Very
right on.
much
Comment is
appreciated.
right on.
Yeah, absolutely. I just go quickly, we'll go over the timeline. 8 a.m., this was on March 31st. Madeline and her partner, which is Adam Frizzell, dropped their 5-year-old daughter and 2-year-old son at daycare. All right. 8:15, the dark blue 2014 Chrysler Town and Country minivan Madeline drives returns to her residence. I don't know exactly where they're getting that from. Madeline doesn't show up for work at Mayo Clinic, something Chief Williams says is very unlikely. So the car returned. Did people actually see her get out of the car and go into the house? That's unclear to us. Did she? I mean, that's everything. Did she get out? If she didn't get out of the car, or he just get out of the car and maybe dropped off the possessions because he doesn't want the cell phone, it's going to track where he is or where he's going.
That's
so
right.
He puts that in the house, and we don't know if she was ever seen getting out of that van. So it could be after 8:15, between 8:15 and 1:30 is when she actually disappeared. Okay, and where was, Mike, that's the big question I have too, and I'm sure the police know this answer. We don't. Where was he driving during all of that time? He was running errands? Where? And that's going to be answered by the GPS in the car. That's why they're forensically processing that car. And if he has a cell phone and his cell phone was on, it's going to hit certain cell sites, even though people told me the cell service in that community and the surrounding area isn't what it is. There's not as many cell sites and that type of thing. But where was he for 3 hours and 15 minutes? What did he do? Did he go shopping? Did he go to a store? Did he go to a doctor's appointment, dentist appointment? Where was he for 3 hours and 15 minutes?
Yeah, because he's got to come up with something for the police, not just I was just driving around aimlessly for 3 hours. That would make no sense at all. He's got to come up with some sort of alibi. I stopped at the Starbucks. I stopped at McDonald's. I got a McMuffin. And then once you do that, or I went to the bank and got some money from an ATM machine, and I was, way off in a whole other area or wherever it is, they're going to be able to verify that. And that's what Phil always talks about is once you do that first interview, you figure out what he said, he's given you an alibi, and then you check it all out and see what fits and what doesn't. And for him, he's got to come up with something because he knows he just can't walk in and say, I was just taking a drive around the countryside for 3 hours.
No, you lock them down. You lock them down. According to the police, at 10 a.m., this is when they were referring to him as Madeline's partner. He tells the police he left the residence in her van, returned later in the day, and she was gone. Police say there's nothing to suggest she left on foot or in another vehicle. Why did he take her van? Right. Apparently, according to the sister, he owns his own car. Why was he taking her van? That's the $1 million question, right?
Right.
10 a.m. through 1:30 p.m. Investigators believe a van similar to Madeline's was seen driving on County Road 12 and Highway 43 in Winona County, and then on Highway 43 in Eastern Fillmore County.
Right.
The van was later found in the driveway of her residence. What was he doing there? What was he doing for 3.5 hours in those locations?
Yeah, he's got to say something. He just can't sit there and say, he's got to come up with something because he says, I've got my Fifth Amendment rights. I'm not going to talk to you people at all. Absolutely. He's putting a target on his head for the cops because, he knows absolutely he's just messed up. He has to say something. He has to give some sort of excuse, and the cops will deconstruct his excuse and realize that, once they can prove that he wasn't at a bank, he wasn't at a Starbucks, he wasn't at a restaurant, he wasn't at a shopping center during those hours, that is consciousness of guilt. And I love using that term because that shows that he's coming up with an excuse that is just wild, ridiculous, doesn't fit, bears no relationship to reality, and it's all made up. And why would you make up facts when your wife is missing? So therefore he's actually boxes himself into a corner because he has to say something that he knows he can't prove.
Well, Mike, another reason that when we think of it forensically, why he may have taken her van is because now if he committed a crime in that van, he had allegedly permission and authority to use that van. So his DNA is already in that van. So does that implicate him? So they have to dig much further. Someone just said, did they spray the van with, I think you meant luminol.
Luminol, right.
Yeah. That would be part of the forensic processing of the van. Yes. Forensic scientists, detectives would process that van with great care and to try to find any type of forensic evidence that would implicate the person that did this in this crime. Again, I hate to jump forward and say that this is a crime. And, they said this is actually day 16.
Yes. Yeah.
It was March 31st, and today is 4/15. So it's day 16 right now. So we always want to be optimistic and hope and pray that they recover Madeline, but
your fingers crossed.
Yeah, we keep our fingers crossed. But something, at the same time, we as police, former police, and the police now, they have to look at this realistically, and they have to look at this from an investigative standpoint and see who potentially could be responsible for this. It's not a normal thing for an adult 26 years old to just disappear for 16 days.
Yeah, especially a mom. A dad might want to run away with his new girlfriend or something like that, in some sort of breakup. But eventually he's going to use his debit cards, credit cards. He's going to have a job somewhere. But a mom leaving her two children, 5 and 2, you know, that's like 1 in a billion chance that any woman would do that. Any mom would do that. No, no way, no way. So we keep our fingers crossed. We hope for the best, but you know, you have to be realistic, and you just hope, you pray for the family.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime stories from a police perspective, then you are in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, what are you waiting for? Go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, make comments. We love to read your comments. We love to respond to them. And if you want to support us financially, we have a Patreon with 3 different levels. And we also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. And you see the folks in the green font in the chat. They're part of our YouTube family and they support us. And we greatly appreciate our friends, our family, our subs, whatever you want to call them. But we do appreciate them. Folks, Madeline's sister gave an interview today. It was either today or yesterday. But there's some little subtle new information, nothing that's going to really, we use that term smoking gun. Nothing's a smoking gun. But let me play a little bit of it here and we'll just see. And she's the spokesperson for the family. She's very strong. She was very close. Oh, she is very close to Maddie. And listen to what she has to say here.
Hey there, Carol Evans, Lou Ragoose here. We've been covering the disappearance of Madeline Kingsbury in Winona, Minnesota. Maddie disappeared on March 31st after dropping her kids off at daycare. So we are now on the 15th day that Maddie has been missing. And joining me now to talk about it is her sister, Megan Kingsbury. Megan, first of all, our hearts go out to you, everything that your family's having to deal with right now and for the past 2 weeks. How are you doing right now?
You know, I'm hanging in as best as I can. Just kind of waiting with bated breath every day until we can figure out where Madeline is.
And you've been kind of the face of all these interviews for the family. It must be pretty personally exhausting for you as well.
Yeah, it has been. I've had to take some breaks from it, but I feel like it's kind of the best thing that I can do to advocate and keep her name and her face out there. So I'm happy to do it.
Okay. I'd like our listeners and viewers to get a better idea of the person that Maddie is. Where did you guys grow up and where did Maddie go to high school?
We grew up in Farmington, Minnesota, and Madeline went to Farmington High School down there. She was a cheerleader and very involved in a lot of things with her school.
Okay. And then just tell me a little bit more about your family. She's a younger sister to you?
Yep. She's the youngest. There's 3 siblings. So Madeline, myself, and then we have an older brother named Steven.
Okay. And
folks, just keep in mind that the family has put up $50,000 for information in order to find Madeline or leading to an arrest of a potential suspect that may have done something bad. Don't forget, the police said this is suspicious and involuntary. We've heard those terms, but police don't like to talk with those terms unless they have real proof that, in fact, this is suspicious and her disappearance is involuntary. So we always have to keep that on our mind as they're talking like, Madeline's going to come home tomorrow. This is suspicious and involuntary. That is a crime. They're spelling out a crime was committed. Mike.
Yeah, it's an abduction. At the very least, it's an abduction, and we hope nothing further than that. But a woman, anyone taken and abducted and deposited somewhere, held somewhere, like a hostage kind of situation, that's a kidnapping. That's an abduction. It's a very potentially violent crime because of a person trying to escape. They could hurt themselves, trying to restrain them. They could be hurt. So this Adam Frizzell, as suspect number 1, people have to realize that he is a very dangerous person, even if he might not have any sort of previous criminal record. What he is strongly suspected of doing is a potentially very violent crime.
Absolutely. Folks, people in the chat keep asking about how are the children, the kids. There's a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. They were taken by Child Protective Services. Now, Madeline's side of the family, I believe, according to the sister, they were allowed to visit them. The children are doing very well. They were shielded from Adam. He's not allowed to visit them. He was not, the court order basically took custody and visitation away from him. So I think that that speaks a little bit as to this case also. The other thing, he had spoken and said that he has cooperated with the police, and they told him not to help in the press conferences or the searches for Madeline. And apparently the police said that was never told to him. So he's making up some things like that. Look, we want to also thank the community here. This community is amazing. 2,000 people or more, actually more than that, have volunteered to search for Madeline. That's a very strong community. That's a caring community. And, now hopefully, there'll be some targeted searches as more information. I'm sure they're getting hundreds and hundreds of tips, but these cases are painstakingly difficult. They really are. They are not easy. And we've watched these cases like these across the nation, Gabby Petito, Summer Wells. Summer Wells has never been found, Gabby Petito was only found because some actually content creators that had a dash cam camera drove through the park that her van was parked in, and they spotted it, and they gave that information to law enforcement, and law enforcement searched that area and found Gabby Petito's her body. So all of these things, Maya Malete, same thing, over probably a year and a half ago. She disappeared. Her husband's been arrested. He's going on trial they never found her. Again, these cases, sometimes they have to prosecute them on a circumstantial basis with circumstantial evidence. And we say it ad nauseum. I use the word ad nauseum. We say it ad nauseum that that circumstantial evidence, when there's a lot of it, it can be very, very powerful evidence. Mike, you want to speak upon that?
Yeah. Circumstantial evidence, direct evidence is when someone actually implicates themselves in the crime. They actually put themselves at the scene, or they actually confess and make incriminating statements, or there's a video of them committing the crime, or there's an eyewitness that says that can testify credibly that they saw the robbery, the homicide, or the assault take place. Other than that, everything else is circumstantial. DNA evidence is circumstantial. Fingerprints at the crime scene are circumstantial. Owning a firearm of the same caliber that was used to kill someone, it's all circumstantial evidence. But it is not weak evidence. It is very important. So almost all crimes have mostly circumstantial evidence with a little bit occasionally of direct evidence. But there are crimes that have been prosecuted where there's absolutely no direct evidence, and it's all circumstantial. And all circumstantial evidence is different from direct evidence, is that all it asks is for the jury to make a logical inference of guilt from the presentation of the evidence at trial. And so long as it logically makes sense to the jury, for instance, there's a report, a witness saw someone run into a house. They heard shots fired, and then they saw the person run out of the house. This is the example I always give to my students. That's not direct evidence of guilt. Their testimony would not be direct evidence of guilt because they actually didn't see it happen. They heard it. So that circumstantially, they can figure out, a jury could figure out, well, the person was seen running in. The shot was, they heard what sounded like a shot. They saw someone run out the back of the house. That's strong circumstantial evidence of guilt. So in this case, and in a lot of other cases, it's mostly circumstantial evidence. And that's not to be disparaged in any way. People say, oh, circumstantial evidence is not strong evidence, it's not reliable. Oh, yes, it is. Absolutely. Fingerprints, DNA, receipts from a restaurant, receipts from a Starbucks, ATM receipts, all of that stuff puts people in certain places at certain times. And that helps, limit a suspect's ability to wangle their way out of a charge or a conviction for a criminal act. And I just want to just mention to Chris really quickly about the Frizzell. Yes, he has been cooperative with the police. When the police ask him questions, he responds, and he probably responds with an attorney. So yes, technically he is fully cooperating with the police. The fact is that I think his an attorney, and if I'm the defense attorney, I'm going to tell him, do not talk to your former in-laws. Do not talk to anyone about this case. Do not go on that search because you might say something. Don't hold a press conference like Scott Peterson in the Lacey Peterson case from like 15 years ago. Don't do that sort of thing because you may come across poorly. You may say something poorly. So yeah, he is not going to talk to anyone except the police, and he's not going to talk to the police except in the presence of his attorney.
100%. I'd just like to note to our audience that basically all the evidence against Alec Murdaugh was circumstantial evidence. And we all know where he is right now, right? He's in prison for 2 life sentences. The other thing is I hear people or see people in the chat talking about, oh, it's impossible to convict for murder without a body. That is not true. That is so not true. It's been done numerous times. There's a case from New York in 1985, and I forget the doctor's name right now, but this doctor killed his wife, threw it in the trunk of his car in a duffel bag, drove her to a private airport, threw it in his private plane, took off, flew over the Atlantic Ocean, and dumped her into the Atlantic Ocean, never to be found. He was convicted, I believe it was 10 or 15 years later, and got 20 to life.
Yeah.
He's actually up for parole. And at his parole hearing, he admitted to doing exactly the murder the way the prosecutor said he did. So just unbelievable. Kay Culp, thank you so much for the $9.99 super chat. This is so great. Hope Mom's case will be on her someday. I'm not sure exactly what you meant by that, but thank you so much for the $9.99 super sticker. Guys, we want to keep up on this case because these cases do move slowly. And it's difficult for folks that have been following this to really accept the fact that the police are keeping things so close to the vest that no new information is really coming out. But the police are doing a great job. That's what they should be doing. They don't want to get all this stuff out there because then it could be used by the bad guy, whoever the bad guy is, to thwart their evidence. And that's why they're doing a great job of keeping all the information they have quiet. And that's what they should be doing.
Yeah, Billy, they're the only thing that could happen is if they give confidential information, if they leak it out to someone, say a reporter, a local reporter in Minnesota, Winona, Minnesota, for a scoop on a story, it could only help the defense because it could give the defense an inside view into what the police are thinking. And if there is going to be a prosecution of Mr. Frizzell, it gives the defense the ability to see what a theory of prosecution would be at trial. So all of those little tidbits of information leaking to the public through a newspaper can only help the defendant. It almost never helps the prosecution or helps the police at all. The best thing people can do is keep looking for her. Again, check trail cameras, go over your property. If it's near a road, check streams on your property. Anything you can think of, that's the best thing that the public can do. And, and that's the best service because, this is a kind of case. This is a manhunt kind of case. You want to recover Madeline. You want to find her. And cops will work, 24/7 until this is over. But they will find her. And I'm sure he will be made to answer for justice.
Absolutely. Let me play a little more of this interview.
So where in Winona does she live? Is it like in town or in the country?
It's pretty close to town. It's kind of right on the border of Winona and Goodview.
Okay. So does it is it a townhome?
Yes, it's like a side by side, so they have a connected wall with their neighbor.
Okay. When you're there, does it feel like you're in a city or in the country?
It feels more of like the country for sure. I'm from Minneapolis, so it's a lot different from where I live. Yeah, it's definitely more of a country feel.
Okay. And from what I understand, she was living with the father of her 2 children.
Yes.
And he's released a statement in the last week, so his name is out there now, which is Adam Fravel. Is it fair to say that they were no longer dating? I know that he's been referred to as the boyfriend, and I might have done that accidentally, but is it fair to say that they were no longer boyfriend, girlfriend at the time?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And Maddie was looking for a new place to live in the near
She-
future?
Yeah, she still wanted to stay in the area. Her kids go to daycare and stuff.
So, Mike, and to our audience, there's some new information that came out. Is that right there? It's basically being acknowledged that there was some trouble in their relationship. In fact, they weren't together any longer. I guess even though, which is even probably the worst thing that could happen, is that you're not together, but you're still living together. The stress and that creates on top of having 2 young children is unbelievable, So these are a couple of things that she said in this interview that we learned now that we were asking these questions the other day, and now at least we have answers to it.
Stuff around here.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think she was looking still in Winona or in Goodview.
Okay. And so you mentioned that she worked often from home. Does that for her consist of like a lot of like checking in with meetings with people, or is she kind of like really working on her own at home?
I think it's a mixture of both. They use Microsoft Teams, and so it would show when she was online, and people would call her, message her often. She did a lot of emails, and then she did a lot of stuff on her own too.
And how often on a normal day do you communicate with her?
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
I work from home as well, so I mean, sometimes we FaceTime and just kind of co-work together. But I would hear from her every single day, at least probably 2 or 3 times.
Okay. And she has 2 kids. How old are they?
Her daughter, Eliana, is 5, and her son, Noah, is 2.
Okay. And I mean, that's just heartbreaking for everyone to imagine, but how are the kids doing right now?
They're doing really well. They're in a safe place and in really good hands. So they're doing great.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what Maddie's normal routine would be on a day where she, gets up, gets the kids ready, and then what happens from there?
Yeah. So she'd get up, get the kids ready to go. Her daughter, Eliana, would go to a preschool a couple days a week. And then the other days they would both go to the same daycare. So they get dropped off at daycare, and then she would come back home and just kind of be working for the day. She might run an errand or 2 in the afternoon. She loves Target, so she'd go get stuff at Target. She would pretty much be home and then go pick up the kids. And after that, I mean, she'd be with the kids all the time. With the warmer weather out, they go to the park and stuff. But yeah, her days revolved around those kids when she wasn't working.
Now, police have made it clear that they believe that her disappearance was involuntary and suspicious. And I just want to help people understand a little bit more about that. Can you talk about what it's pretty clear that Maddie had plans, right? Both short-term and long-term. Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I mean, on the 31st, the next day, I mean, she was going to come to my house with her daughter, Ellie, for the weekend. Um, but I mean, as far as like other plans, more long term, she was a grad student at the U of M to get her master's in public health. It's difficult, first of all, just to get into that program. And then, it definitely signifies that she wanted to further her career. She was looking at possible other promotions, job opportunities within Mayo Clinic as well. So she definitely had some plans to get to some higher places, I'll say.
And is it fair to say that you know Maddie about as well as anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I just want to make it clear so people understand that in your mind, the chance of her running off or being involved in some sort of drug thing or anything like that, it's about a 0% chance.
Yeah, a negative chance.
Okay.
Yeah, no way.
Okay. Now I know you've gone through this so many times, but just kind of take us through the day of the 31st from your vantage point.
Yeah, so we both get up really early for work, and she's up early with the kids. So I will typically hear from her before 8 a.m. sometimes. I had sent her a funny photo the night before. We went on a trip together last summer, just a long weekend to Rhode Island. So it was just a funny picture from there. She didn't see it until that morning of the 31st, and she just kind of sent her response back, LOL, and and I had responded to it, just kind of general like chit chat. And that was at like 8:15 that she sent me a message, and then that was the last that I heard from her. And I didn't hear from her the rest of the day. I didn't really think about it. I know she's busy. And then my mom reached out to me probably around 6 p.m. asking if I had heard from Madeline, because my mom had sent some messages and I think maybe tried to call her throughout the day with no response, and that just isn't normal. And I was like, nah, she's fine. She's probably busy with the kids. But I did send her a few messages. Hey, mom's concerned. Can you call her? Text her back. I didn't get a response to that. So a couple of hours went by, and I tried to call her a few times. It rang, but went to voicemail. Sent her a few other messages. And it was about 7 o'clock. I reached out to some friends of hers. Nobody else had heard from her. And that's when we kind of started to get
interesting. Well, so far,
concerned.
no
I reached
one's
out to my
spoken to
dad.
Adam.
He usually talks
Right.
to her regularly too. He
Right.
hadn't heard
She's
from
out
her.
of it completely.
So at that point, especially because she was supposed to come to my house the next morning with her daughter, Ellie, there were definitely some alarm bells going off because it just was so unlike her. And then just as it got later into the night and, she still wasn't responding or picking up her phone, pretty quickly we wanted to file a missing persons report because it's just such.
Mike, that's quick to file a missing person report for an adult, unless you really right away sense some foul play right away.
Yeah, I remember in the NYPD, it had to be something where they might have been an elderly person with dementia, a mentally handicapped child, someone who's expressed some sort of feelings of danger, a drug addiction, mental health issues. Other than that, they wanted you to wait longer, but that was fairly quickly done.
Yeah, and so my point to bringing that up is that they must have convinced the police that no, she's in danger. And
Right.
so what did they tell the police? Because you know how the police are. Wait, she's 26 years old. She has the right to go where she wants to go. She's
Right.
an adult. She's probably out partying. they would say all these different things, but the family obviously convinced the police that she was in danger, that no, she is indeed missing.
Right.
So, and the police right away got on this. So my whole point in this is, what does the family know and what does the police know that we don't know and the general public doesn't know?
Yeah, they know all the victimology that's gone on and all the relationship that has gone on that happens behind closed doors with couples and with when they talk to their siblings, with their parents over the course of a couple of months. The public might say, "Oh, they just seem like a nice couple down the street there. Yeah, way over there, nice couple." But when you find out there may be some sort of verbal abuse, physical abuse, there's acrimony, there's a breakup impending. She was absolutely on the very last couple of days of staying there. She was looking to move on. And it must have been a very, very concentrated and maybe difficult atmosphere to stay in when the two of them are in a home and he's looking at the clock. He's looking at the calendar saying, this is it. She's moving out and she's got the support of her family. And so therefore, there's this deadline, and the police know all of the secrets about their relationship right now that the family knows, that the public
Absolutely. Mike, one of the other things that I just want to point out is Madeline is only 26 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She has a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. Therefore, she was probably with Adam when she was between the ages of 20 and 21 years old.
Right.
When you figure it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
The timeline of just being pregnant for 9 months, having a 5-year-old. Yeah. So she was between 20 and that's a young age to be involved in a relationship like that and to have children. I mean, to me, it is, I guess, years ago in my parents' era, that wasn't. My mother got married when she was 18, but that was a whole different era. In this day and age, that's young, right?
Yeah. And remember, that's about the time you're a senior or junior in college. She was able to get her bachelor's degree and get into a very respected master's program, very demanding master's program. So she had a tremendous intellectual ability and the ability to organize her life and work your nose to the grindstone. And she did it, and she did it at a very young age, and she was going to go places in her life. And perhaps that spurred a lot of resentment, with Mr. Frizzell, perhaps, and led to the breakup. She was leaving her older life behind, and she was going to be moving on with her kids. And she wanted him to be perhaps a smaller part of their life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Folks, if you're looking for a great attorney in the New York metropolitan area, then Joe Murray is your man. Joe's a retired NYPD police officer and a fantastic defense attorney. You can reach Joe on his cell at 718-514-3855. Email him at joe@jmurray-law.com. His website is jmurray-law.com. Not only is Joe a fantastic attorney, he's so busy now, I don't think he needs this ad anymore, but don't tell him that. He's so busy, but he's also a huge supporter of the Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories show. And he used to be a frequent guest till he got too busy in his law practice. Now, every time we call him, he can't come on the show, but we appreciate him a great deal. Folks, this is a tragic case, and we're trying to give you our knowledge, our depth of our knowledge of what we think is going to happen. And we think the police are really on the right track. And I think that they got this case in hand. And we hope that, of course, that there's a happy ending to this. Realize it's been 16 days, right? Mm-hmm. This happened on March 31st. Today is the 15th. Normally it would be income tax day, but they moved it to the 18th this year. So if you see some feds knocking on your door, it won't be till Wednesday, right?
That's right. Don't answer.
Don't ask, don't tell if you didn't pay your taxes. But
that's right.
Folks, again, the heartbreaking case. I have some people in that community that reach out to me by email. And we hope and pray for the family of Madeline Kingsbury and the community. I know that the community of Winona, Minnesota, is taking this very difficult. Also, very tough for the community. And I think that the police may have said this. I don't know. They don't like to say this because they said that in the Idaho case, there's no danger to the community, and
Right.
they got to be very careful about saying that. But these cases are usually someone close to the person that was put in this danger. And that's all I'll say. I don't want to speak in definitive terms. Mike, we've been on for about an hour. Final words.
Final words. I think your viewers should know that the police are doing everything possible. A lot of the evidence that we gather nowadays is electronic and it's scientific, and it's going to take quite a while, maybe a month, to get all of that information and then go through it. Remember the Idaho case with Koberger? Everybody was like, "Oh, is it a cold case?" And we could see that it's not. And this case isn't going to go cold. I'm sure the Winona County Prosecutor's Office, the district attorney, is working hand in hand with the police and guiding them every step of the way. They've executed warrants. They are doing everything by the book. And just because something doesn't happen in 48 hours, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen and a perpetrator of a crime is going to get away with it. Not at all. Not at all. So be patient and just keep the faith in the police doing the job that they're trained to do. And they are very eager and they cannot wait to solve this crime.
Absolutely. Mary Gold, thank you so much for the $15 super sticker. You're from California and you thanked us. Thank you so much, gentlemen. No, thank you. Thank you very much for supporting Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. Folks, we do our best to try to handle these cases with sensitivity, with expertise, with experience, with knowledge, and to impart that to you. But, you also have to realize we sometimes have the roughness or the coarseness, maybe I'll use that word, of cops. We've seen a lot of bad things over our lifetime in law enforcement. And we know things and we can interpret things, judge things maybe too quickly based on what we see in an investigation. And like all of you guys, we hope and we pray that Madeline Kingsbury is found alive. But again, 16 days, law enforcement is doing everything possible. There's been thousands of people searching for Madeline. The fact that her relationship was breaking up, the fact that a judge issued an order that I don't even know what to refer to him as, Adam Fravel, is not allowed to see the children right now. All of those things are not good signs. And they're we're going to hear very shortly that he is a suspect. He is a person of interest, but we don't want to be the ones that we've already said that probably earlier than we should have, because we've seen these cases before. We've seen hundreds of these cases before, thousands of these cases maybe. And, 2 and 2 equals 4, and again, we hope and we pray that this comes to a happy conclusion to this great family, the Kingsbury family. You could see how they've stood behind their sister, their daughter. And, she is a real achiever in this life, getting a bachelor's degree with 2 young children, going for a master's degree, and a very difficult area too, in sciences. It's certainly not an easy coursework, So she would be helping people with her life. And we hope that she's found alive and can continue to do that. Folks, I want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight. We sort of just decided, I think at like 7:30 at night, I gave Mike a quick call and I said, Mike, what are you doing anything? And you go, no, I'm glad that I have co-hosts that have no life like me, So at any time I could just reach out to them at a moment's notice. I said, I'll go on the air. I love doing it,
Yeah.
So that was Mike tonight. I didn't want to call Phil because I think he was on a cannoli run to Brooklyn. So I don't want to interrupt him. This is a busy night for him. So, but folks, we're going to stay with this story. Again, I have some friends in that area. They reach out to me by email. I appreciate if you hear anything. And I don't, believe me, I don't tell police secrets. If it's something that's meant to be only heard by the police, I'm not gonna put it out there if they don't want it out there. So just be confident in that. Folks, again, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Have a great night tonight and a great Sunday tomorrow. And God bless.
Good night, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.